Hey, welcome to Too Many Gadgets. So today I'm talking about this, the Ambi Climate Mini, to control your AC or your heat pump. Intelligent heating is a market that's growing. I myself found a solution a couple of years back with Tado since I have floor heating. This device is targeted towards those of you who have AC or heat pumps. This is where we are looking at primarily two drivers for why you would want to buy a device like this. Either you are looking to save some money on your heating electricity bill, really, when we're talking about this, because you can sort of turn off the heating in the hours that you are not at home or set more intentional schedule, stuff like that. The other thing that we could be looking to do with a device like this is to improve your indoor climate, the humidity, get a more stable temperature, stuff like that. That's really the two main drivers that we are looking when we are using a device like this. But enough intro here. Let's see the specifications for this device. The Ambi Climate Mini is 47mm tall, 110mm wide and 24mm deep. It weighs 50 grams. You get integrations to Amazon Alexa, Google Home, Apple HomeKit and IFTTT. It's wall mountable and has a temperature and humidity sensor. The IR transmitter will work at ranges up to 5 meters. The list of supported AC or heat pump manufacturers is quite big. So the core concept of this device really is, for those of you who are familiar with the Logitech Harmony system, where you have a hub or sort of multi-remote control that you can sort of mimic the IR signals that are being sent from your regular remote control to your device. So this is sort of the same principle. This device can send IR signals to your AC or your heat pump and hence sort of take the control of that. But instead of just you having to touch it and control it using the remote controller and app, it can sort of do it automatically using its servers, where you can define your settings in the app that comes with this system. So the way it does this is that you define either schedules, you define if you want it to turn on and off when it detects that you and your family are leaving the house or are on your way back, or also a source like live weather data, where it can combine weather information to take an informed decision about, okay, we can see that the weather is sort of the temperature is falling, so I sort of need to prevent that by increasing the activity on your system so that the temperature in your house doesn't drop. The last thing that they've, like many others in this sort of intelligent heating space are doing, is that they are adding a sort of an AI model on top of this, where it over time will learn your preferences and your heating system, so that it can make sort of informed decisions about your likings and how your climate can best suit what it feels that over time when it sort of learned your preferences, what you want it to be. And that comes with a subscription model, which is $2.99 per month currently, and you get a trial period so you can sort of test it out before you take the decision on whether or not you want to add it. And again, that's voluntarily. You don't need to have the subscription. It's just coupled to the sort of AI that they are offering with this solution. So now that we have the core concepts in place, let's talk about the installation and how you use the app for running this device. Those of you who follow my channel will know that I have floor heating in my own house, so I had to recruit one of my neighbors who have 3 AC units in their house. So Ambi was kind enough to send me 2 devices that we could install in their house to test out this system. So let's have a look at how you install it and how you set up the app. To start out the process, we insert the USB-C cable to power on the unit. The indicator will start to flash orange, which tells you that you can go in the app and start the setup process. We first need to select which device we are installing and give it a name. After that, we need to find the Wi-Fi point that the Ambi Climate Mini will expose. So we switch to our Wi-Fi settings, find the Ambi Climate Mini. And now within the Ambi Climate app, we need to define which home network you want the Mini to connect to. Once it's connected to your network, it will change from orange to green and you can continue the process. We now need to select which unit we are controlling, and I'm using the method here of using the remote control. And what I'm doing here is just putting the remote next to the Ambi Climate Mini and then going through all the modes of my unit. And once I've sort of hit a mode button, I will press the next button and continuing doing this until I've been through all of the modes. To verify that it's identified the correct unit, you'll just need to do a small test to see if it activates the unit you are controlling, and in my case that works out fine, so I can continue the process. You see the main modes that it has identified for your specific unit, and if that matches your remote control, you should be good to go. Let's just put the unit into comfort mode and you are pretty much done with the setup process. Now let's switch to looking at the app from an everyday perspective. Here's the main screen where you are shown two graphs running across the screen with the temperature and the humidity. Those are also shown in the top of the screen. We can also show historical data for a specific unit, and you can see that data both in a day, week or month perspective. We can also switch to insights, which will give you some really nerdy data about both sort of the temperature and how that's sort of running over time, but also which modes the unit is using to keep your indoor climate as optimal as possible. So this is really nerdy stuff for those of you who prefer that kind of data. Switching into the settings for the system, we can have a look at how you can set some parameters to make sure that there's sort of a lower threshold that the system will maintain to make sure, you have some boundaries for what you will define as acceptable, even when you are away from your home. Should you find that any of the sensors is not perfectly precise, you can add offset values to compensate for that. You can create multiple schedules that you just give a name, select which hour of the day it's running, which weekday it's using this rule, and which mode it should go into at that specific time. The other option is to use the geolocate rule, where you define a name for a specific rule, and then you define the arrival settings, what mode it will go into when it detects that you are arriving at your house, and the trigger mechanism that needs to be valid for this to take place. Same principle is followed using the departure settings, where you again define what mode it should go into, and again what trigger should be valid for this to take place. You can define how big the virtual fence surrounding your house is, so the rules don't trigger too soon or too late. And last but not least, you of course have the option to select the mode you want your unit to use. Let's talk about how the test went with this device. So again, I installed two of these devices in one of my neighbor's house, and the install process was fairly easy, especially number two, once you have the understanding on how this works. But even with the first one, we initially took the route of trying to select the device that we were trying to pair from a vendor list, but weren't successful in finding the specific version. But once we just then tried the route of using the remote control and sending RR signal to the Ambi Climate Mini device, it quickly picked up on which device we had, and from there it was sort of smooth sailing. So again, we installed two of these devices, and in one of the rooms that we installed the device in, we at least had like 7 meters from where we ended up mounting the Ambi Climate Mini to the actual AC unit. And even though the Ambi Climate specification says only up to 5 meters, there was no trouble in sending the signals, even though we were like 7 meters away. So again, it's not a guarantee, but for those of you who have that concern, you would be happy to see that it seems that it actually can go even further than the 5 meters specified. So often when you buy a device like this and set it up, you perhaps are not fully exploring all the options and understanding the details on how you can use this product that you purchase. And so I was happy to see that Ambi sent the test person a couple of emails automatically after the install. And this is because you create an account in the app when you set up this system. So a couple of emails over I think the first week was sent to the test person, sort of explaining some of the details and helping understand the app and the options that you have. And I really think, that's very clever and something that others could learn from, that you need to support sort of the post-purchase experience to help get sort of the maximum effort out of the product that you've purchased. So really good to see that Ambi is supporting this process. This product in its core is quite simple, but it has a lot of options. And the app sort of reflects that, and it can perhaps be a little overwhelming at the initial sort of learning curve of it. So I would perhaps prefer if Ambi tried looking at making sort of the core functionality of the app more accessible and simple, and then hide the details sort of a layer or two below that. This was also something that the test person reported back to me after a couple of weeks of this test period, that they really liked this system and the app. But again, that the initial sort of experience was that it was perhaps a little bit overwhelming with the amount of information and the way that the functionality was categorized in the app. But I would say, and this is also true with my own experience from similar systems with other heating sources, that once you've sort of set this app up and configured the system and found your sort of your rhythm in this, you won't find yourself using the app very often, because you really at that point only needed to lie in the background on your phone for it to send your geo position once in a while. So if you are using the option on the system turning the heat on and off based on your geolocation. So again, the app is not that important, but it's just the initial experience that, of course, perhaps Ambi can improve even further by making the UI of the app even more sleek. Let's talk about the subscription model that Ambi is offering with this system. So let's just start out with the price. So $2.99 per month, I think, is fairly priced. And not something that should be overwhelming for anyone. Of course, you should always look at subscription-based models, because over time it can add up. But I always see this as when you buy a device like this, where the device itself, of course, represents a value, but a lot of the value is also with the backend system that controls this. So it's really in your own interest that Ambi have an incentive to keep supporting these devices, because if they turn off their backend, this device is not really very much of use. So I think it makes sense in these type of products that there's a small subscription, so that they have a steady income on running these servers and supporting these units that only represents part of the value in this type of ecosystem. So the feedback from my neighbor who helped test this system out was that they have been very happy with testing this system out. Again, we had 2 out of 3 rooms covered with this system, and a good sign of them being happy about the system is that they are themselves going to buy a 3rd unit to have this system in their entire house. One sort of feedback that I was positively surprised by, but again a little bit surprised, was that they were extremely happy about having constant measuring of the humidity in their house, because they found that if the humidity was off, they sometimes experience headaches and stuff like that, and having a constant measurement of that was a big plus for them, so they were more aware of this. Also, especially in their bedroom, where they felt their sleep quality improved if the humidity was just right for them. So this is something that I was positively surprised by that this is just a plus, because I think most will focus on the heating part and not perhaps the humidity part. But again, I think it's good to see that you also need to put emphasis on the humidity part of this equation. So like me, the app part again was initially a little bit overwhelming. They are nowhere near techie people, and a product like this needs to be mainstream-ish, of course, perhaps a little bit for those with a tech interest, but this is not a techy type of product. This should be fairly mainstream. And again, yeah, so the app took them a little bit while to get used to, especially the part about the AI feedback, where you need to sort of state if it's too cold, too hot, for the system to learn. And that part could perhaps be improved, so it's more easy to understand how you give feedback, and that you need to give feedback for the system to learn your preferences. So the ability to remote control the system was one of the things where my neighbor was extremely pleased with this system. Initially he didn't use the geo part of the schedules. He just, when they were out shopping and he knew, we'll be back in 20 minutes, he picked up his phone and then turned the system on so that their living room would be nice and comfy on the humidity and temperature side when they got home. He later on moved into setting up the geo rules so the system would automatically turn on and off based on that. But he's a little unsure if he wants to continue using that or try just to set up fixed schedules for how this system will run, turning the different zones on and off based on timing instead of geo-based rules. But again, I think that's to be expected, and something that I also found myself playing around with my own system with floor heating, that you need to sort of find which best suits your household, if it's geo or if it's routines, or actually also a combination of those two. So, in conclusion, first of all, thanks to Ambi Climate for sending me two of these tests with my neighbor. I think this is an interesting product, and for those of you who are looking to either potentially save some money or improve your indoor climate and have more precise control of that, this is definitely something that I can recommend. It is something that you will need to spend some time with setting up and sort of fine-tuning to get your specific preferences sort of dialed in. But once you've done that, this is a system that pretty much takes care of itself. The features that this product comes with are similar to some of the others in this space. Where they can set themselves apart is, of course, with this AI intelligent learning of your preferences part, which others are also sort of playing with. The subscription that's attached to that part, I think, is fairly priced. However, this specific version has the ability to be wall mounted, which the first version of this system that Ambi Climate launched did not have. But if you are using, sort of wanting to use the AI part, and you are not gonna wall mount this device, maybe you should consider buying the first device that sort of sits on a desk or something like that, because that does not have a subscription price tag to the AI part. So again, if you want to wall mount, you need to go with this. If you don't need the wall mounting part and want to use the AI part, perhaps consider buying the original unit from Ambi Climate. So the price of the mini version is $129, and I'll leave a link in the description field, and also a discount code worth $10 off your purchase if you want to buy this from Ambi Climate's webpage. As always, if you have any questions, please just leave a comment and I'll try to answer them. Else, I'll hope to see you guys in another video. Bye.